Among damp blades of grass or beneath the corner of a porch, you may come across a spider clutching a round white sac directly in front of its mouth. At first glance, it looks as though she is carrying an oversized piece of prey, or has become trapped with something that prevents her from hunting normally. But it is not prey. Inside that small sac are dozens, sometimes even hundreds, of eggs, and the mother spider carries them almost everywhere she goes, even though the burden slows her down, makes feeding more difficult, and leaves her more exposed to predators. What makes this behavior so unusual is that she does not hide the egg sac in a burrow or suspend it somewhere safe, as many other spiders do. She holds it directly in front of her mouth, where a single mistake could cause an entire generation to disappear. So what drives a mother spider to carry such a dangerous burden, and what exactly is she protecting those eggs from? This is not an accident, nor is it the clumsy behavior of a spider struggling to hold onto her egg sac. It is a deliberate form of maternal care commonly seen among spiders in the family Pasoridae, especially nursery web spiders found across Europe and their relatives in North America. Unlike spiders that wait for prey to become trapped in a web, these are active hunters. They hide among grass and leaves, then rush forward to ambush insects. But once a female becomes a mother, the mouth parts normally used to seize and handle prey take on an entirely different role, gripping the egg sac beneath the front of her body. She is not trying to eat it. Her fangs hold only the outer layer of silk, while the appendages around her mouth and supporting strands of silk help keep the entire sphere steady as she moves. In Pasora mirabilis, a single egg sac may contain around 150 eggs, and the mother carries it for several weeks. During that time, she does more than simply transport it. She repeatedly changes position in response to the surrounding conditions, almost as if she were regulating a miniature habitat for the developing spider embryos inside. But exactly what signals she is responding to is still not fully understood. Carrying the sac forces the mother to move with greater care, but the true cost of this strategy does not become clear until the final stage. And to understand why she still chooses such a dangerous method, we first have to look inside the egg sac, a tiny world she cannot afford to leave unattended for long. The shell is not sealed. The world inside that white sphere is anything but still. From the earliest days, the spider embryos begin dividing, gradually developing legs, eyes, and their first outer covering. They cannot escape, regulate their surroundings, or rely on a hard shell like a bird's egg. Their entire chance of survival depends on a material that looks more delicate than a strand of hair: spider silk. The first misconception is that an egg sac is simply a bag that keeps the eggs together. In reality, it is more like a protective chamber built from countless interwoven strands of silk. This structure holds the eggs in place, softens the impact of minor bumps, and creates an additional barrier between the developing embryos and the outside world. But an egg sac is not a sealed container. In many spider species, the silk is highly porous, allowing air to circulate while slowing sudden changes in humidity. Some types of egg sacs also trap tiny pockets of air between their layers. For nursery web spiders, this structure helps shield the entire clutch throughout the journey, but it cannot completely protect the eggs from temperature changes, fungi, parasites, or small predators. That is why the egg sac's most important layer of protection is not hidden within the silk. It is the creature carrying it, preventing an entire generation from becoming a stationary target. The cradle that moves. From the outside, the mother spider may seem to be carrying nothing more than a bulky load, but this behavior is actually a form of mobile egg care. Many spiders attach their egg sacs to a web, hide them beneath leaves, or leave them inside a shelter. Nursery web spiders use a different strategy. They turn the entire clutch into something that can escape danger with them. This also explains the strange position directly in front of the mouth. Wolf spiders usually attach their egg sacs to the spinnerets at the end of the abdomen, while nursery web spiders grip theirs with a pair of mouthparts called chelicerae. The round sac hangs beneath the front of the body, leaving all 8 legs free to cling to grass stems, climb across leaves, and change direction quickly when danger appears. In return, the mother keeps an entire generation within her immediate control. If a branch begins to shake, a shelter becomes unsafe, or a predator approaches, she does not have to return and retrieve the nest. As long as the mother escapes, the egg sac leaves with her. Anything trying to reach the eggs must first get past a venomous hunter with fast reflexes, ready to carry her entire family out of sight into the vegetation. That is the great advantage of an egg sac that can escape danger alongside its protector. But carrying it is not as simple as picking up the sac and holding it until the eggs hatch. As development continues, the sphere gradually changes from within. The embryos grow, their oxygen needs shift, and the moment when they must leave, the silk draws closer. Somehow, the mother has to recognize that the seemingly silent sac is entering an entirely new stage. And what she does next reveals a level of care far more sophisticated than the appearance of a wandering spider would suggest. When the egg sac speaks, the egg sac cannot keep itself warm, nor can it move away from a leaf heating up beneath the sun. So the mother spider must do it for the developing embryos inside. In Psora mirabilis, the mother may carry the egg sac onto the upper surface of a leaf during cool or cloudy weather where it can absorb more warmth. But when the sunlight becomes too intense, she moves it beneath the leaf or finds a more sheltered position. These movements are not random wandering. They alter the amount of heat the egg sac receives throughout the day. For the tiny embryos developing inside, even small changes in temperature can affect their rate of growth and the amount of water lost through the silk. The mother cannot generate heat the way a bird warms its eggs, but she can choose where to place the cradle. Instead of warming it with her body, she uses the surrounding environment as a natural climate control system. As hatching draws closer, her behavior changes again. She begins appearing more often on shrubs, grass stems, or clusters of leaves capable of supporting a structure made of silk. She seems to know that the period of carrying the sac is almost over. But how? She cannot see through the layers of silk. Perhaps she senses tiny movements, changes in tension, vibrations, or a chemical signal coming from within. So far, the exact mechanism is still not fully understood. What is certain is that the mother does not set the egg sac down at random. She waits for a very specific moment, finds a suitable location, and begins building something a hunter that does not use a web to catch prey would seem to have no need for. The trap that isn't meant for prey. Nursery web spiders do not rely on webs to feed. They hunt with their legs, their reflexes, and sudden lunges through the vegetation. So when the mother begins releasing strands of silk, pulling leaves closer together, and building a small tent-like structure, it is easy to assume she has switched to constructing a trap. But no prey is being waited for here. This web is being built for her young. The mother hangs or secures the egg sac within a three-dimensional silk structure, usually anchored to grass, leaves, or low branches. This is the nursery web itself, the structure that gave the entire group its name. After being carried throughout development, the egg sac now rests inside a larger silk chamber, where the spiderlings can crawl out, cling to the threads, and gather into a small cluster before stepping into the outside world on their own. So setting the egg sac down is not an act of abandonment. It is the transition from a moving cradle to a fixed nursery. The silk web lifts the young farther from the ground, provides countless points of support for bodies that are not yet fully developed, and creates a barrier that makes it harder for predators to reach them directly. In many species within the family Pasoridae, the spiderlings remain in the nursery for several days, sometimes until after their first molt, before dispersing. And the mother still does not leave. She stays on or close to the silk shelter, holding her position like a guard at the gate. A creature that normally lives alone now spends the final days of its reproductive journey standing watch over a crowded mass of spiderlings beneath her. Even more surprising is that nurseries like these are not always hidden deep in the wild. They may be built right on shrubs, fences, or patches of grass that people walk past every day. The garden's silent guardian. Those silk shelters may appear much closer to us than we realize. In Europe, nursery web spiders are often found in meadows, along woodland edges, among bramble bushes, and in sunny areas of low vegetation. In North America, their relatives also hide in tall grass, hedges, shrubs, and the transitional spaces between gardens and forests. A tangled cluster of silk near the top of a grass stem, with dozens of tiny dots gathered inside, may actually be an active nursery. Its appearance can easily make people think the plant is being damaged by insects or that a dangerous spider has just built a nest. But nursery web spiders do not eat leaves, drink plant sap, or use these silk shelters to trap people. They are insect hunters. When they are not caring for eggs, they ambush flies and other small arthropods moving through the vegetation, helping keep the garden's web of life in balance. Agricultural extension sources in the United States classify them as beneficial predators and do not consider them a significant threat to humans. So if you find a mother spider standing beside a silk nursery, the best response is usually to leave the area undisturbed for a few days. Do not poke the egg sac, spray chemicals, or tear apart the silk simply because it looks messy. The spiderlings will not remain together like an army forever. After their early stages and first molts, they begin dispersing to live alone, while the nursery slowly fades into a few empty strands between the leaves. But before that moment of separation arrives, the mother must complete one final and crucial act, an act that reveals the egg sac was never merely something she carried, the cost of the cradle. By the time the mother begins building the nursery, what lies inside the sac is no longer a group of motionless eggs. The spiderlings have developed and are waiting for the moment when they can leave the silk. As she stretches threads between leaves and grass stems, the mother continues holding the egg sac in her jaws. Only when the nursery structure is ready do the young emerge, crawl onto the web, and gather into a small cluster. They do not disperse immediately. During their first days, the silk shelter gives them a place to cling, molt, and avoid many of the dangers waiting below. This changes the entire meaning of the white sphere carried in front of her mouth. It is not simply a container for eggs, but a cradle that must remain protected until the exact moment it can be transferred into an entirely different kind of shelter. The mother must coordinate carrying the sac, choosing a location, and building the nursery with the development taking place inside layers of silk she cannot see through. But this advantage comes with a severe trade-off. In Pisora mirabilis, the female carries the egg sac for about 3 weeks and is believed to do very little feeding during that time. The mouthparts that once restrained prey are now occupied, and the body of a wandering hunter temporarily becomes a transport system for the next generation. Even afterward, instead of immediately returning to the hunt, she spends additional time guarding the nursery. So the egg sac is not held in front of the mouth because the spider has nowhere more convenient to carry it. That position gives her the greatest possible control over her young, at the cost of speed, feeding opportunities, and sometimes weeks spent in a state of near starvation. The white sphere that looks like a burden is actually an entire nursery in motion, and the creature behind it is no longer simply a solitary hunter, but the final line of defense between hundreds of unborn lives and the dangerous world outside. The egg sac held in front of her mouth is more than a sign of protection. It shows how a spider can change nearly every part of her way of life to carry the next generation through its most vulnerable stage. Among the grass or on a low leaf, the white sphere that once looked like prey can now be recognized as a cradle in motion. As hatching approaches, look for tangled clusters of silk stretched between grass stems, with many tiny dots gathered inside and a larger spider standing nearby. It may be an active nursery still under guard, not an abandoned web. After a few days, the spiderlings will disperse. Some may release fine strands of silk and let the wind carry them elsewhere, beginning solitary lives without ever seeing their mother again. An entire journey of prolonged care ends in a moment that almost no one notices. But science still does not fully understand what signal tells the mother that the young inside are ready, and that the time has come to shift from a moving cradle to a silk nursery. Is it movement, vibration, a chemical scent, or some tiny change in the tension of the silk? Have you ever seen a spider carrying an egg sac or a cluster of spiderlings in your garden? Share what you observed. Subscribe to the channel to keep exploring the secrets still hidden in the familiar world around us, where sometimes even a tiny cradle can change the way we see nature itself.